Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power, where I am trying to show you how to transform your life by shifting your thoughts inside of you and moving out instead of allowing the world to toss you around and tell you how you need to live. In my show last week, we were talking about how you can change your thoughts and your actions by shifting your vibration. And I shared with you how the mind works and how there's different levels of vibration. And so I want you to go back and look at that show first if you haven't done that one before this. Today, I want to share with you the idea of prosperity and how we can move ourselves to a higher level by shifting our thinking and focusing on prosperity. Now, some of you may not understand that, and that's okay. Just hang with me a little bit. But everything is a state of mind. Everything that you are doing is from your conscious thinking. Now, here's the problem. Scientists have studied this, and they realize that 95 to maybe as much as 97% of your day is all robotic or habitual thinking. We need to shift that. We need to stop allowing ourselves to be sucked in to whatever you're hearing. And we need to start shifting your thoughts so that you're really considering whether something makes sense or not. We have to develop a consciousness mind. This is not done by coming to a weekly episode like this. Shifting your consciousness of mind comes from study and concentrated work. So why is it then that so few people do that? Well, in this book, one of my favorite books called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, he states, there is no labor from which most people shrink than they do from that of sustained and consecutive thought. It is the hardest work in the world. This is especially true when truth, what it is you want, your prosperity, your abundance, when truth is contrary to appearance. Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce a corresponding form in the mind. Listen to that again. Every appearance in the visible world, that's the world you're looking at, the reality you're in, tends to produce a corresponding form in the mind which observes it. And this can only be prevented by holding the thought of the truth. The truth is what you want, okay? So that sets up the basis for what I'm going to talk about today. Finding your truth. So prosperity, just like everything else, is a state of mind. When we don't have prosperity, it is because our state of mind is thinking lack and limitation. So often we tend to diminish what we have because we are here for expansion. We're here for growth. And so we want to constantly grow and expand. But we tend to think, oh, well, look around me. My bank account's empty. I don't have money to pay this bill. I can't afford that. Those are the things that we're saying to ourselves. And therefore, we allow those thoughts to come into our mind. What we need to do is start focusing on what we want, thinking of our life as prosperous. Keep in mind, just like Wallace Wattles says, thinking truth, what it is that you want, is the hardest work in the world to, sustain that kind of thought. So we're just come to us by law. The law, the source energy, as we're going to call it, is not picking the people. you had to volunteer. You had to volunteer that, yes, I am going to be one who's going to be prosperous. And as soon as you volunteer, then you need to study and learn this information. So one thing, in order to go any further, you have to believe there's a higher power. That higher power can be whatever you want to call it. You can call it energy, because everything is energy. That's the one law we know. Energy is. It's just there. And it's in everything. So you can call it source energy. You can call it just source. You can call it infinite intelligence. That's what Napoleon Hill used to call it. You can call it God. That's the way I think of it. Maybe it's Allah to you. Whatever it is, you just have to believe there's something more than us. Now, for me, that's relatively easy because I don't know how human beings got here. I don't know how the earth was created, the universe, and it just boggles my mind when I think that the universe just goes on infinitely. Like, how can that be? How can it just go on forever? But then if you think, well, if it doesn't go on forever, then it has to have a stop. Well, then what's on the other side? So that's the kind of thing that, you just have to put that aside and say, it's just the way it is. Because our minds very often cannot understand that. When you think of what you're going to call the source energy, well, how did God get here? How did that source get here? How did that infinite intelligence get here? We don't know. We just have to accept it is, just like energy is. So to be able to understand this information, you have to believe there's something, a higher power. And then you have to learn how to connect with that higher power. That takes focus. And again, I refer you back to what I just read from Wallace Wattles. That concentrated effort of thought is one of the most difficult things for people to do, which is why so few do it. Why are there so few people that are super successful? Why is it that if you took all the money in the world and you divided it equally between every single person, that in a very short period of time, you would go back to the 95 and the 5%, and you would find out 1% that is just soaring? Why is it? Because of this very thought process. It's difficult to think truth. Why is it people that have been able to earn a lot of money, now earn it, not win a lottery, but have actually earned millions, and then they lose it, can gain it back very quickly? Because their mind's right. Their mind is focused and they know what to do. If one person can do that, anybody can. But it's not going to happen by chance. You're going to have to work at it. So instinctively, we can understand this, but that doesn't mean we're going to do it. We have to connect with that higher power. So any time that you look at your life and you feel like you have lack, and it could be financially, it could be in the position you have in your job, could be in your business, can be in your relationships. Anytime you lack, you've created it. It's your consciousness. Change your thinking, change your focus, and you will change your life. Sometimes that's a little hard to accept as true. And I know if you've never heard that, that can be a hard pill to swallow. But it's exactly what happens. So when you think troubles, when you think lack, that tends to grow. Whatever you focus on in your life grows and expands. So then why would you focus on what you don't want? Sometimes we do it in reverse. We say, I don't want to be blah. I don't want to be whatever. And you see, the mind doesn't understand those negatives. So you tend to get that. I don't want to have an empty bank account. Empty bank account, that was what she asked for. See, that's, you get what your thoughts are, or it could be the other way. You can want something, and I think I mentioned this in the last episode, you can want something very much and hope and wish for it, but then you add that doubt, worry, fear in it, and it goes the other way. So what I want you to realize, and again, I'm going to refer to Wallace Wattles, but he says, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made. All things. A thinking substance, that's that source energy, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. That substance, that thinking substance, is everywhere equally at the same time. It's omnipresent. It's, always at your beck and call. A thought, any thought, positive or negative, in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by that thought. So whatever it is that you want, it's going to be imaged by that thinking substance. Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon the formless substance, can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. The thing he thinks about. What have you been thinking? Have you been thinking prosperity? Or have you been wishing for prosperity, but thinking lack and limitation? You see, results don't lie. The results you're getting are exactly where your thinking is. Shift your thinking and you will shift your results. How do I know this? Because I've done it. You can shift your results. You feel it shifting. When you think on a higher level, and again, go back to the last episode because I show you some diagrams on shifting your vibration and being on a different frequency. The frequency you're on today is the frequency that has gotten you to where you are today. Now you can move up and down frequencies because they're all connected together. Earlier this week, I had a really traumatic experience happen to me, negative experience. It dropped my frequency down. So I went down to a lower frequency. And I struggled for hours to get out of that because it wasn't just one thing. You see, when one thing went wrong, then another thing went wrong, and then another thing went wrong. And I just kept attracting all these bad things into my life. And so I had to shift to a different frequency. And then I was able to move a higher frequency. When you have a big goal, you want to have prosperity in your life, that's at a pretty high frequency. And you're going to have to know how to shift to get to that higher frequency. So you have to think ideas of prosperity. What is prosperity to you? Because the prosperity to me, prosperity to you, prosperity to the next person can all look different because we're all coming from different frames of reference. So prosperity to you might be $5 million in the bank. Prosperity to me might be $1 million in the bank. Prosperity to somebody else might be $50,000 in the bank. You see, it's different for everybody. And this is why when you talk to wealthy people that have millions and millions, they'll say, what do you want? More money. And we might look at them and say, you're a multi-millionaire. Why do you need more? Because they don't feel prosperous, because we're always expanding and growing. So even though they may have $10 million in the bank, prosperity to them is 100 million. You see, we're all at different levels, and that's okay. Accept that we all have different experiences and perceptions in life. So we need to identify and clarify what it is that we really want. Clarity of vision is going to be very, very important, and express prosperity in every area of your life, not just financial. You see, I think we lose something when we only look at financials. I remember reading a story about a man who was so set on making sure he had plenty of money, and he accumulated lots of money, and he, went to retire, and he had the money, but he didn't have anything else. He had lost his family, and wife had pretty much deserted him, and all he was left with the money. And you see, on your deathbed, nobody's going to say, I wish you'd have earned more money. Your kids are going to say, gee, I wish mom or dad, or, I wish they would have spent more time with me. I wish I could have had that experience with them. So you don't want to just be prosperous in one area of your life. You want to be prosperous in all areas of life. So as I was saying a couple of days ago, when things were going wrong, things were going right in my personal life, things weren't going right in my business life, things weren't going right with my relationships, everything was going downhill. How quickly can you shift that? Because those times are going to come to all of us. I don't care how positive you think you are. I don't care how inspired or motivated you are. Stuff happens that's out of your control. And that's what happened to me. Things were not in my control. And those experiences led me down to a lower vibrational level. And I had to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to shift my vibration so that I can get back on track? So habit of thinking prosperity, think in terms of money, think in terms of possessions, think in terms of what you need to change your thinking is what will get you prosperity. So just take a minute and think about, what does it look like for you to have high prosperity? And say those words: I am prosperous. I am rich. I have XYZ, whatever it is that you want. See yourself with that. Maybe it's a house. See yourself in that house. I am in my new house. I am in my new car. Whatever it is, see yourself there. Use your imagination. That's why you have an imagination. As far as we know, human beings are the only ones that possess imaginations. So use your imagination to your benefit. It's a gift you've been given by source energy or by God. So use your imagination. True prosperity means greater freedom, greater expression of life, increased living, increased satisfaction in what you're doing and in yourself, increased energy, increased health. Those are all parts of prosperity. So we're not just looking at financial. And then I want you to start to emphasize the things that are really important to you and start to focus on those things and dwell on them with your heart. The ancient Egyptians, ancient Greeks called the subconscious mind the heart. And so we have to focus on what is in your heart. What is it that you want? So when we fail to attract the things that we want in life, it's because our mind and our expectations are feeble. So we want something. Let's just say we want to earn, let's just make it a nice round figure, $100,000 a year. That's what we want. And that's what we, want to attract into our life. But what are we thinking? It's not possible. I can't do it. Oh, what if it doesn't happen? And we start planning for the plan B. I want you not to do that in this case. Don't plan your plan B. Plan your plan A and decide what it is that you want. And start thinking about what that will do for your life. Maybe it's not 100,000, maybe it's 1 million, maybe it's 500,000. Figure out what that prosperity looks like. what kind of things are you doing? If you had the prosperity figure that you want in your life, what would you do today? How would you talk to people? Would you maybe stand a little taller, sit up a little straighter in your chair, have a bit more confidence? That's what I want you to start thinking. How would you be? How would you come across to people if you had that amount of money? So sit down, clarify what it is that you want. How much money do you think it's going to take? And then we have to have faith that it's going to happen. See, that's another thing that will keep that from coming to us. We have to have faith. You see, when my son wanted that scholarship to go to college, it took him 6 years. It was a 6-year journey for him. So often we want things to turn around in a split second. And that's just not the way things work. You see, there's a gestation period for every goal that we have. And we don't know what that is. We can only guess. We put a date beside it, but that's only a guess. It can come sooner, it can be slower, but that's just a guess. And sometimes our goals are so big that we have to go through a learning process. You know, when I started my own business, I came from a background of education. This was so foreign to me. You see, when you're shifting to a different vibration, it can be so foreign to you. So here I was, everything I had was on this certain level, which was a pay scale, in which I knew every year how much more money I'd be making and so on. And it was set. There was no thinking. It was that habitual, process going through. When I started my own business, I was in a world I was totally unfamiliar with. And I was trying to navigate through my senses how to do things. And I couldn't do that. I had to let go and get the ideas. And I had to search. I went on my own journey searching for the answers. And I'd come up with a little answer. And then sometimes I'd make a huge mistake. And it was a costly mistake. And then I'd find another answer. And then sometimes I'd make another huge mistake. And it was a learning process. Not everything I did was perfect. And many things I did out of order. And it was all part of the learning experience. You have to go through that. You have to be willing to accept failure in order to succeed. Success is never a straight line. You might say, well, why is that? Well, I believe that when we start to move towards something new, that we have to decide and be passionate enough about what we want to do in order to achieve it. And so I just feel like there's these guardians out there and they're putting traps up for us. And sometimes they put those obstacles in our way, or they put the discouragement in our way, and they put the disappointment in our way as a way to test us. Are you going to work through it, or are you going to back out? There's a reason that we talk about the 5% versus the 95%. Which group do you want to be in? Because it's easy to be in the 95% group. It doesn't take much effort at all. But if you want to move into the 5% group, you're going to have to work at it. It's not going to be given to you. Anybody that has had high achievements, I guarantee you, they have earned it. Sometimes we look at, these wonderful athletes and we think, oh my gosh, everything was so easy for them. I guarantee you it was not. They had plenty of disappointments. They had plenty of obstacles. They had injuries they had to overcome. They had times when they doubted their own ability. How do I know that? Because that's the way success works. But what did they do? They kept persisting because the dream was bigger. The goal was bigger than that disappointment. looking at my own business, there were so many times I could have just given up, just thrown in the towel and gotten a job. It would have been so much easier. But in the back of my mind, I would have always said, if I'd have done one more thing, if I'd have only. And so I decided to give it everything I've got, pull out all the stops. Because what I do know is that when you focus on what you want, you will get it. But you have to be all in. You can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out or sit on that fence. You got to decide which side of the fence you want to be on. And it's okay to be in the 95%. There's nothing wrong with that. But it has to be your choice. And you have to realize that. So we are quickly running out of time. So I want to just check my notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting things. But money itself is powerless. It's the consciousness behind it that will draw it to you. So here's what I want you to be working on. Just to make sure, you realize that the supply is in the ether and the ideas are in the ether. And when you get an idea, please write it down. I can't tell you how many good ideas I have not written down. And, even the ones that you say, oh, that is so good, I'll never forget that. Yes, you will. Take it from me. You will forget. So what I want you to do is to really start thinking prosperity. What does prosperity look like to you? What would you be doing today if you had the amount of money this year that you really would like to have? Now, keep that in mind, like to have, not need. Because when we say we need it, we have that desperation in our voice. We have that, that lack thinking. So I want you to say, I am rich, I am prosperous. Not, I will be rich, I will be prosperous. That's putting in the future. And be specific. I earn $100,000 this year. I earn $500,000 this year. I have X amount of sales. Whatever it is, you've got to decide and be very clear about it. Chances are, when you have a disappointment, keep this in mind. When you have a disappointment or you think this path is the answer, sometimes it is not. And we may invest a lot of money in that path that we think is the answer, only to find out it was not the answer. So what I want you to make sure that you do is to keep looking and realize that when you have a disappointment, that might be a clue that you're on the wrong path. And if you keep searching, the answer will come to you. So I have various events throughout the months and years, and I would like you to go to my website, which is Your Dream Power, just like the book name there, yourdreampower.com, and go to the events section and click on one of the events so that you can attend one of my masterclasses or one of my longer events so that you can get the answers you want and share in the Q&As and bring your questions to ask so that you get that clarity of what you really want in life. And I will see you in part 3, which will be coming in the next episode. This is Patricia Stepler with Your Dream Power. Be the magic in your dreams.